Hi guys and welcome to my MWC recap rambling. I think we've seen already all the good stuff. I think all the important devices were already announced and I want to take a few minutes to talk about them and start maybe with the least important brand, which would be Alcatel. They released their Idol 4 and 4S, at least they announced it. Let's talk a little bit about them, what they have in common and what they could offer. So first of all, the Alcatel Idol 4. 5-inch display, Snapdragon 617, 2610 battery, so maybe not the biggest one, but it seems to be quite a nice mid-ranger, especially since the 617 was performing already quite nice in the HTC A9, so I'm looking to quite a nice mid-ranger here. But I think their highlight of course was the 4S, 5.5-inch Quad HD, Snapdragon 652. I've never used that, I think no one's did so far. That could be quite a good one if it's really even better than the 617, which was already a really nice performer. 3 gigs of RAM, 3000 milliamp hours of battery, should be quite solid since the Snapdragon shouldn't use up that much as a high-end flagship. So that's definitely something to look forward, but I'm sure these won't be the big sellers. So let's talk about the one brand that tried really hard, and I think it just is that they tried, but I don't think they really succeeded. And I'm talking about LG with their G5. It's the, let's say, first mainstream flagship modular phone. But what we got so far is we got replaceable bottoms here that you can attach modules. We had one for a DAC to get better MP3 sound with a headphone jack. We got something for the camera where we have a few manual controls and maybe one more. I'm not even quite sure if we did get more. Is that really something that spectacular? I don't think so, and I don't think anyone will really use that on a daily basis. It's a nice, I would definitely call it a gimmick. It's nice that they tried something different, but what I think they lacked a little bit about, and I've talked about that already in my last rambling, I think they skimped out on the phone itself, because the phone itself is something that they almost didn't talk about. Yes, we get a Snapdragon 820, we get an improved camera, which already was good on the V10 and on the G4. But what else did change? They didn't talk about it all, about the display, so I don't really expect too much to happen here. The battery is smaller, 2800 milliamp hours is, in my opinion, for 5.3 inches still not flagship worthy, because yes, we have a 5.3 inch display now with QHD IPS with always on and 2800 milliamp hours of battery. I don't think it will be good enough. It will be okay, but maybe just about as good as the G4 watch, which in my opinion already wasn't good enough. So the modularity is nice to see that they did something, but I don't really see them having done anything groundbreaking, because a DAC, they could have just included a better DAC in the device itself. That would have been no problem. They did something already, something similar on the V10, so why make that extra and people pay extra for that? I don't see the reason. And the camera modules, is it so important that you have like a wheel now and buttons? Because the camera itself won't be better. You get a little bit more battery, but that's about it. And I think people, if they want to shoot pictures professionally, if so, they would need that grip. They would use a camera anyways. But if you want to shoot something just out and about, then you will just use your phone as it is, and you won't just swap the module, wait for it to reboot and boot again so you can actually use it. You will just use the phone as it is. Because everyone is talking last year about accessing the camera as fast as possible. But it's not fast if you have to shut down your device, reboot it once again. That's when you have already lost all your footage. So the speaker is something they didn't talk about at all, so I don't think it will be any good. So as the phone itself, which is the main device that you will use all the time, I think they could have done better. It's nice that they made like something like unibody aluminum now, but it doesn't really look amazing. It looks nice, I wouldn't definitely complain about it, but it's also taller than the 5.5 inch G4, which is a little bit unfortunate because they made a smaller display, but the device is actually taller. Maybe it's a little bit narrower, but that's about it. But let's talk about the one brand now that didn't just try. In my opinion, they succeeded, and maybe even a little bit more, even though it's just a iterative, or I'm not quite sure how to actually call that word, but it's just a smaller upgrade in some aspects. But I think it's a big one, because I'm talking about the Samsung Galaxy S7 and Edge, even though I won't really talk about the Edge for some reason, and that is it's a 5.5 incher and it has the Edge. I personally don't see the appeal in the Edge. First of all, it's a little bit too big for me. I definitely prefer the 5.5 inch, the 5.1 incher, and the curve is something that I don't see to be necessary. I found it to be actually a little bit of a more of a burden because of comfortability in the hand, and I don't see any benefit of the Edge. Now we have a bigger Edge. When you swipe up, you have like double what you did before, but I use bezel gestures already for years that are actually useful, that I use on a daily basis, and I still think even on the S7 Edge I wouldn't use them at all. So that's why it's not interesting for me, but the small one is interesting. So what did we get here in terms of improvements? 5.5, a 5.1 inch QHD AMOLED display. It will look amazing, no doubt about that. Sound, if it's anything like on the old one, it's already great. Design, they did improve it because now it has the nice little curve as we already have on the Note 5, so it should feel even more compact in the hand, definitely more comfortable. Rounder, we still have the curved glass and all that, which is absolutely something I'm looking forward. So this will be great. I still think the button placement is, at least the volume button placement is something where I'm not looking forward, because I think it's in the wrong place. Should be on the right side in my opinion, but it's okay. I hope that the power button is a little bit, since we've seen it's a little bit more flush, that it feels a little bit more premium, because on all the current Samsung devices I've felt it like it is a little bit on the cheaper side. When you press it, just the tactile feedback didn't impress me that much. Camera will be amazing. Now it's waterproof, amazing. Not that it matters to me, but it's nice to see. SD card support, we have it once again. It's great. 32 gigabytes with an SD card should be fine for everyone, and 3000 milliamp hours of battery is absolutely great, because we have a 5.1 incher with a 3000 milliamp hour of battery with the Snapdragon 820, or in some regions with the Exynos 8890, I think it is, should deliver great performance. So I think it's the overall best device. It pretty much has no flaws at all. The only one thing that could hold up me from getting one is one thing that no one else will care about. What am I talking about? That is the screen sensitivity, because what I usually noticed on all the Samsung devices, input lag if you type a quite fast pace just didn't keep up, and what is even more so important, if I do upwards and the downward gestures alongside the bezels, they just don't work properly on a Samsung device. If I do it just from the side inwards and diagonal, it works, but the ones upwards and downwards, I have them everywhere. I have 3 on every side and 3 at the bottom, so like 9 zones, and I can use like half of them just because the sensitivity isn't there. So that would maybe actually even be a deal breaker. But if the device is really that good as it sounds, I could maybe look past that. But that's pretty much something that only I would care about and no one else. And I tell you, if that's not a concern for you, which it shouldn't be, because I'm the only psycho that thinks like that, then I think this will be the device to beat it, definitely, without any doubt, because it overall will be killer. Now, the next device, let's quickly talk about the HTC devices, because we talked about LG trying, we talked about Samsung succeeding, and I'm pretty sure we are talking about HTC failing quite bad. Why? Because they announced 2 mid-rangers, or I would say even low-enders, in the budget segment with the, I don't know, not even quite sure, 630, 530, I don't care, it doesn't matter. We have a Snapdragon 200 in one, and in the I think it's a 210, and in the other one a 400 with a 5-inch display, 720p at best. I think the other one is even lower. So these are devices you shouldn't really care about. The HTC X9, what is it? It's a 5.5 incher with, as far as I know, just a 720p display. The camera of the A9, which was nice. Performance-wise, I think it uses a 617, if I'm not completely wrong. I could be wrong here. It's okay for the device. It has boom sound once again, but I kind of think the cheaper boom sound that really doesn't impress so much from what I heard on first hands-on. So they didn't really bring anything new to the table, and I'm pretty sure everyone is looking for the M10. So what we got here from them is nothing to talk about. Then there would be Sony. What did Sony actually release? And I'm not quite sure how I should call it, because they definitely didn't fail, but I'm not quite sure if that's already their flagship lineup. And I really don't think so, because 5 inches have all of them in common. Snapdragon 820 on the X performance. Then we have the regular X with the 652, I think. Maybe it's also the 617. And then we have one with a MediaTek SoC. I won't really talk about the smaller ones because they are nice, they are good, but I think they are all three of them actually overpriced, because if I got the prices right, maybe they weren't quite right at that moment, but the X was $600 and the X Performance $800. If that's true, you pay too much of a Sony premium, and I don't see the appeal. About the X Performance that I want to talk mostly about, Snapdragon 820, which is nice. 5-inch 1080p is still okay. Of course, maybe a 1440p already would have been nice, but the one thing I have a little bit of a problem is, yes, they improved the camera. The design is quite okay. It's aluminum this time on the back, but it's not waterproof anymore like the Z series was. And the battery is only 2700 milliamp hours of battery. It's smaller. But as far as I get from the thickness, I think this one is 6.9 or 7.9 millimeters, and the new one is 8.8, or I think it's 8.9. So they made a bigger device, a thicker device, and with a smaller battery. Yes, you could say we have 5 inches instead of 5.2, but it's still not okay, because I wanted at least 3000. That should be the minimum for every flagship. And I don't think actually this will be the flagship, because it has the flagship SoC, but the rest doesn't seem to be flagship for a Sony device. Yes, we have the newest camera, but the battery is a little bit too small, even though they say 2-day battery life. I don't believe that. They have some optimization and all that, but it's not waterproof anymore. They still kept the odd, idiotically placed volume rockers, because everyone complained about it being too low on the Z5. And what did they do on the X? They did the same exact thing. But on the XA, so the smallest of those three, they actually placed them once again pretty similar as on the Z3, where I think it's absolutely fine. Really great, actually. But they didn't. Why did they change that? Why has the XA the good button layout and the X Performance and X the wrong one? So I really hope this is not all they have to offer. But for right now, I think it is actually. Even though I can't believe it, because I think those devices are supposed to be released close to summer of 2016. And then there's just not more space to release even something a little bit later. I really hope they will release at that point, maybe announce it, a real flagship, a Z line once again. But some say they retired the Z line in favor of the X line, which would be fine for me if the X would actually be a little bit more impressive, which it isn't in my opinion. I don't see the appeal at all, but that is something that just is to be thought of. So Sony did offer nice devices, definitely overpriced and a little bit disappointing still. The last thing that I quickly wanted to talk about is, in many devices that we got to see on MWC, we noticed one thing in the software. The app drawer is missing. Samsung and Sony seem to at least have it optional to still be there, but I think it's LG that dismissed it, and maybe even HTC, but I'm not quite sure, but definitely LG. And why? According to the latest rumors, there won't be an app drawer in stock Android anymore, in Android N, which makes no sense for me, because this was always the big thing that differentiated an iPhone from an Android. It was the app drawer. Everyone says we don't have to have everything in folders on the top screen. And it's not a big issue unless we would lose third-party launcher support, which I don't think will. So until we still have third-party launcher support, I can use Nova and I don't care what they offer me, because I never use the stock launcher anyway on my personal devices. So, but it's still bad to see that stock Android is going this way, because I don't see the reason for it. Where's the benefit? Where's the advantage of having no? They say they want to maybe make it a bit more streamlined. Most people want an easier experience, but why is that easier? Why is having no app drawer, where you can, in some cases actually, for example in Nova, make categories where you have everything, which is similar to folders, but you don't always have to see them like you will have to do on an iOS like app drawer or home screen. So I absolutely don't see any good reason for it. And I definitely wouldn't use it this way anyways, but it's quite poor to see that Google is going that way. For what reason? I really want to know their proper explanation, because if it's really just to make it easier, I don't know what was wrong with the previous ones already. But that's it so far. I would really like to know your thoughts and which phone did impress you the most, if you are planning on buying one, or if you are maybe holding back saying I want to wait for what Huawei has to offer, what Motorola has to offer, or something like that. Personally, the LG for me is off the table. I don't like the modularity. I'm not quite convinced in the whole device itself, because I don't like the button layout, and there are just a few things too much that I don't like so much. And from what I see, the price is even higher than on the S7. HTC so far, nothing what I want to see here, but I definitely want to wait and see what the M10 has to offer, because it still sounds really, really nice. But I definitely want an always on feature that I think is really appealing on the S7. If the HTC M10 delivers a great display and has always on, then I will wait and maybe decide. But otherwise, I'm pretty sure I will, despite the issue that I had with the gestures on the previous Samsung devices. And if it's still even here, that I think I will switch to Samsung this time, because I like the software by now. Performance should be absolutely great. Battery life seems the most promising of all the devices. Their camera is always great. The device will feel great. So that's definitely my main favorite. If the M10 maybe can deliver, otherwise I don't see much. I was hoping for a great Sony device to come out, but if the X is already dead, then they are off the table as well. Motorola could be a good alternative, but I'm not quite sure if I want to wait that much longer, because I'm already using my Z3 for 1.5 years, and as a tech YouTuber, I would definitely want something more updated by now, being on board quite early on the Snapdragon 820 board. So, like I said, leave me your comments, or maybe you like something like Alcatel has to offer, a really nice premium mid-ranger. Maybe you want to wait for what OnePlus has to offer, or any other brand that I maybe just forgot to talk about. But that's it for my recap. It was a little bit longer than I expected, but I gave you all my opinions quite okay. So that's it. If you like this video, please don't forget to rate, subscribe, and comment. Okay, until next time, bye.